Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on media. In this video we're going to look at the work of Jan van Dijk and the digital divide. Jan van Dijk, a prominent sociologist and communications academic, is well known for his analysis of digital inequality in the modern world. His book, The Deepening Divide: Inequality in the Information Society, examines how access to and usage of digital technologies, such as the internet and computers, are unevenly distributed among people, leading to what is often called the digital divide. Van Dijk argues that this divide has significant social, economic and political consequences, further widening the gap between those who are able to participate in the information society and those who are left behind. The digital divide refers to the gap between individuals, households and regions that have access to modern information and communications technology, and those that do not. Van Dijk emphasises that this divide is not just about whether people have access to technology, but also about the quality of access, how effectively people can use these technologies, and the social and economic benefits that result from their use. Van Dijk's core argument is that the digital divide is both a cause of and a consequence of broader social inequalities. In other words, people who are already disadvantaged in terms of income, education or location are less likely to have access to digital technology, and this lack of access further marginalises them in the information society. For example, individuals without internet access may struggle to find employment opportunities or access education, putting them at an even greater disadvantage compared to those who do have access. Van Dijk's work is grounded in a critical sociological perspective, focusing on how power, wealth and social structures shape access to digital technology. He argues that the digital divide mirrors existing social inequalities, particularly those related to class, education, income and geography. From this perspective, the digital divide is not just a technological problem, but a reflection of deeper social issues. Van Dijk builds on ideas from other sociologists such as Pierre Bourdieu, who emphasised how social capital and economic capital are distributed unequally in society. In the same way that Bourdieu argued that wealth and education give some individuals more social capital, the ability to participate in society and access resources, Van Dijk shows that digital access has become a form of capital in the information age. Those with digital capital are better able to find jobs, access education, and participate in social and political life, while those without it are excluded from these opportunities. Van Dijk also draws attention to the global dimension of the digital divide. He argues that inequality in access to technology exists both within countries, between rich and poor, urban and rural populations, and between countries, with developed nations having far greater access to digital technology than developing ones. This leads to what he calls a global digital divide, where entire countries and regions are left behind in the information revolution. Van Dijk's analysis of the digital divide uses a multifaceted approach, combining quantitative and qualitative research methods. His research draws on data from surveys that measure levels of access to and use of digital technologies across different social groups and countries. These surveys provide statistical insight into who is online and who is not, and they highlight patterns of inequality. Van Dijk also looked at case studies of specific countries and regions, examining the local factors that influence digital access and usage. This allows Van Dijk to explore how cultural, economic and political factors shape the digital divide in different contexts. And finally, historical analysis. Van Dijk traced the development of digital technologies and their spread across societies over time. By looking at the history of technological adoption, Van Dijk is able to show how the digital divide has evolved and become more complex over the years. For Van Dijk, the digital divide is a layered issue that involves different levels of access and use. One of his key contributions is his analysis of the different levels of the digital divide, identifying 4 types of access that affected people's ability to benefit from digital technologies. Firstly, motivational access. This refers to whether people are motivated to use digital technologies. Some individuals, particularly older adults or those with lower levels of education, may not see the value in using digital tools like the internet, or may feel anxious about learning how to use them. Secondly, material access. This is the most basic form of access, referring to whether people can physically access digital technology, such as owning a computer or having an internet connection. Van Dijk points out that while the cost of technology has decreased over time, material access remains a barrier for many low-income individuals and people living in rural areas. Having access to technology is not enough if people lack the skills to use it effectively, according to Van Dijk. He emphasises that digital literacy, the ability to use technology to find, evaluate and create information, is essential for benefiting from digital tools. Many people, particularly those with lower levels of education, struggle with this aspect of the digital divide. And usage access. Even if people have access to technology and the skills to use it, they may not be able to use it to its full potential. For example, someone might use the internet only for entertainment, while others use it to apply for jobs, access education, or participate in political discussions. Van Dijk argues that this is another form of inequality in the digital divide. Van Dijk argues that the digital divide contributes to social exclusion, where individuals and groups are marginalised from mainstream society. Without access to digital technologies, people are excluded from opportunities in education, employment and social life. And this exclusion is particularly harmful in a world where more and more services, such as government programmes, banking and healthcare, are moving online. Van Dijk also highlights the global aspect of the digital divide. While some countries, particularly in the global north, enjoy widespread access to the internet and digital technologies, many countries in the global south lag behind. This global digital divide reinforces existing economic and political inequalities between rich and poor countries. For example, countries with poor digital infrastructure may struggle to compete in the global economy or access educational resources that are available online. Van Dijk's work has a number of applications in several different areas of media. Firstly, the role of mobile technologies. With the rise of smartphones and mobile internet, more people have gained access to digital technology, and sociologists have explored how mobile devices are impacting on the digital divide, particularly in developing countries where fixed broadband access is limited. Since the publication of The Deepening Divide, social media has become a dominant force in digital communication, and this has led to more research into how social media platforms contribute to or help bridge the digital divide, particularly in terms of political participation and social engagement. And finally, digital literacy programs. Sociologists have researched the effectiveness of digital literacy programs, particularly those aimed at marginalised groups. Solutions are needed for how governments and organisations can help people not only access digital technology, but also use them to improve their lives. Jan van Dijk's The Deepening Divide provides a thorough and critical analysis of how digital technologies are shaping inequality in the information society. His work shows that the digital divide is not just about access to technology, but involves deeper issues of skills, motivation and usage. Moreover, the global digital divide continues to widen the gap between rich and poor countries, and this reinforces existing social inequalities. As digital technologies become even more central to everyday life, Van Dijk's work remains highly relevant, encouraging further research on how to address the inequalities that global tools can both create and exacerbate. That concludes this Tutors U Sociology topic video on media, looking at the work of Van Dijk on the digital divide. Thanks for watching.